welcome back to my channel Learn Smart Coding. In this video I'm going to cover how to use the HTTP service and call the external APIs to show some data onto your application. Before I go ahead and explain you about HTTP service in deep, let me show you an external API which I have developed as part of .NET Core Web API series, and we are going to consume those APIs into this project. This is the URL of the Swagger for the restaurant app. I'll give you those details in the description. So if you look at here, we have different APIs exposed like categories, cosines, food menu under each cosines, and under the food menu you could get different images for each food, right? We're going to consume most of these APIs in our application. The first one that we will consume is this cosine. So what this is doing, when we call this Cosine API, let's try it out right away, right? It's loading. It returns some data. You see this Italian, Indian, Chinese, Thai cosines, and these are the properties that we developed in the previous clip, and we manually added some data to show our UI, right? So in general, before you consume any of the API, go and check always the API response, the properties and the structure, and I would suggest you to create exactly same model into your UI side. So in my case, you can see this ID, name, description is active, or the 4 properties that come under the cosine interface, exactly same. The reason why it is good to have exactly same property name is when you consume these things via observables, it will match property to property. If you don't have the property names exactly same, you need to manually map those properties, meaning which property goes to which property. You need to tell that. To avoid that, it is preferable to have same property name exposed by the API. Come, let's get started into this HTTP service. What is HTTP service? See, most of the front-end application, like what we are developing now, right, needs to communicate with the server side over HTTP protocol to download or upload data and access other backend services. So Angular provides a client HTTP API for Angular applications. Since ours is Angular application, we can use HTTP client service class under the module called Angular Common HTTP. So the HTTP client service offers the ability to request typed response object. In this case, we can see cosines or food menu or all those things. They're all typed response object. Streamlined error handling. If something goes wrong when we invoke and then we don't retrieve some data, it is very easy to handle the errors. We can test it. We can intercept the request and response. Now we heard some story. Now it's time to be in action. So where do we start? In general, the application that we are developing is a small one. So in our case, we will directly say we'll create a folder called services, and under services we can create a service called cosine.service.ts. However, if you are in a bigger project in your company, right, the best way to have these services is under each module. We will also shortly create modules for this menu. In next 2 clips we will end up seeing a module created in our app. So it is preferable to have the services for those module in the module itself. Whichever services are common across the application, it is best to put it outside the module, which is what we are doing now. In our case, it's a small application and we really don't need to have it inside a module because we don't have a module now, right? So we will create it. How do we create it? We just need to create a class called cosine service and export it. So export class cosine service, and then the next important thing that we need to do is we need to mark this class with a decorator called injectable. So injectable is something, a decorator which Angular provides, and as soon as any class marked with injectable, Angular exactly knows how to inject this class whenever a component or any other services is requesting this via dependency injection. Dependency injection is most powerful one in Angular, and we're going to make use of that. So what we need to do is we need to say provided in, and we can provide this as root. I'll explain you more in detail of the services works with different providers. For now, what we are going to do is we are saying this class is injectable and we are providing this at the root level. In our case, the root level is nothing but the app module. Okay, so think of this as a family tree, right? Grandparent, parent, children, grandchildren, and so on. In this case, our app module is kind of a grandparent. We are providing this to the grandparent. So grandparent can provide this service to anyone under them, which could be their son, their grandson, or whatever it is, whichever is lower than the grandparent, right? That's what this is doing in simple English. I'll explain you technically what it is. So bear with me for a second. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a private variable called API URL, and which is of type string, and then a default constructor. I formatted this code. Now what we are going to do is dependency injection. So how dependency injection works? In the constructor, if you ask for any service which is of type injectable, the Angular will provide us. We are going to inject an HTTP client service offered by Angular. So in this case, I will put a private variable called HTTP, and I'm asking Angular to provide me HTTP client service, right? I'll bring in this namespace by control period. It's not coming, so you can click here. Sometimes it used to come. If not, what we need to do is we need to import this under Angular common and under HTTP. See, the error went off. So now we injected HTTP client service into this constructor of this service. Similarly, whoever is asking this service will have this Cosine service added to their constructor. We will see how to use this in the common component, the Cosine component that we have, and we will see how to invoke the methods. Now what we need to do is we are going to create a method called getCosines, and what this method will do is this method doesn't have any input parameter. However, it is going to return of type observable of array of cosines. I'll explain you what is observable of cosines, right? What is observable pattern? We are using RxJS in our Angular, and the observable comes under the RxJS. So I'm going to explain you what is observable before we further write some code. Think of this. Observable is something that a pattern which has been observed, a subscriber model pattern. Now, if you're watching this video in YouTube, there are plenty of things that comes that subscribe to my channel, right? Let's say you're subscribing to my channel. I am the publisher, you are the subscriber. What YouTube will do, whenever I publish, if there are some subscribers, it is going to intimate to them that such so-and-so video has been posted by so-and-so channel, right? In this case, YouTube is Angular. I am the one who is the publisher, right? It's just like a caller, and subscriber is the application who is calling that method, right? So now what will happen is whenever we invoke an external call, we will invoke and leave it. Once the data comes, whoever has subscribed, to every single person, in our case to every single caller, the data will be given by the Angular. So in this case, our cosine data will be given to the callers. I hope you understood. What we are going to do is we are going to say constant. We'll format an URL, which is the URL of this cosine. So let's put this. So if you look at this, I'm going to copy this. I don't want all these things. I just want until here. So this is my URL. This is my URL, and you need to access the HTTP client variable using this dot HTTP. There's a spelling mistake. Dot all the methods of the HTTP is being displayed here. Delete, get, put, post, patch, everything. In our case, it's a get, so we will say get, and then we simply need to pass the URL and the headers. So headers are optional because this API doesn't have any strong authentication for practicing purpose. You don't need to send any token or any specific headers, but in general, when you use real-time bigger APIs, you need to append some headers. Only then it will work. So headers is optional. We are going to use only the URL here, and then right. So this is going to return the data once it receives the data. What we can do is I have a method which extracts this data. So let me copy paste this method. So we are going to simply call the get array, which is this method. It is going to pass the URL. This is going to trigger an HTTP GET call, and pipe and map are the operators of the RxJS. So we'll explain you more about this pipe and map in the RxJS video, but basically what this is doing is, pipe is some kind of a pipeline. So data will flow through the pipe. So when it flows through the pipe, it goes to the map. Map is nothing but a method which maps property to property. So in this we are saying map all the data based on the property, and then it returns this. This is a generic method, and then we're going to make use of this. So we're going to call this and receive this data. We have the method ready. So now how do we use this? Let's go to the Cosine component. Here, if you see, we manually added some content here. So instead of this, what we are going to do is, we are going to remove all this content, and simply we are going to say, right, we injected the Cosine service. So we make use of this. So when I say this dot Cosine service dot get cosines, and then you're calling this method. If you call this method and leave it, right, there is no subscribers. So it's like that same concept. If I'm uploading and if no subscribers, my video will not be delivered to anyone, correct? So we cannot leave this here. Once we call this method, there's a method called subscribe. Once you say subscribe, and we are saying when the data comes, please add that data to my Cosine. That's it. This is what I'm saying. So once the data is ready, it will call and it will assign the data to the Cosine. Great. You can see this is loading here. Looks there's some error. Let's take a look. Okay, so we did everything correct. There was no error in the coding, and you still see some error here, right? Good, we got some error. Let's identify what is this. In this error, there is something meaningful says it's no provider for HTTP client. It did not say no provider for our service. It says no provider for the HTTP client. So something I have missed it. So what I have missed is this. If you come to the app module, you need to import a module called HTTP client module. HTTP client module, which is from the Angular. Once I add this to my app module, the error went. There are different errors, that's okay, but the main error went. Now what is missing is, before the data came, we started doing something here. So what we're going to do is, we're going to cut this content and put this inside this one. So in order to put this more than one line of code, we open this bracket and put this, and we also cut this and put it here. Cut this. Great. So we added this. Please wait is coming because this method is called after 5 seconds. We don't need to call this after 5 seconds. Let's cut this. We don't need all these things. I'm going to format the code. I formatted the code. So how do you format the code? Control A selects everything, and then Control K, Control F will format the code. It will prettify. Great. You see this data coming. So how do I know? If I go to F12, which is developers tool, under the network section, I'll clear everything. Let's save this and reload and see. So I saved it. It's reloading. When the app component, you see this, there is a call went outside. This is the HTTP call went outside. So this is calling the external URL, and it received these data. And that's why you're seeing this different results. Great. Now if I hover on it, you see the actual results coming from the HTTP response. In next video, we are going to talk about how to pass data from your parent component to a nested child component and receive some information from your child component to your parent component. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like it, share it, comment it, and never forget to click on the bell icon.